Welcome back to Sunrise as we continue this Hope Day Wednesday, of course, and focusing on Child Protection Week. Well, it's an initiative to raise awareness on children's rights, and under this year's theme, Let Us All Protect Children to move South Africa forward. According to reports, 1 in every 3 children are victims of sexual violence or physical abuse before they reach the age of 18. Now, joining us in conversation is Pam Wilson from the National Adoption Coalition of South Africa, as well as Bongani Makhubo from the Save the Children South Africa. Remember, you can be part of our conversation by giving us a call on 011 4471 742 or 011 1620, or leave your comments on our Facebook as well as our Twitter pages for this morning. Good morning to you guys, and thanks for joining us. Now, Pam, I read up that in one of your reports, and this is a 2015 one, says 3,500 children are abandoned annually. This was in 2015. That's a scary number. It is a scary number, and sadly, it doesn't ever seem to get less each year. There aren't really very reliable statistics nationally in the country held by the Department of Social Development on abandonment. For Child Protection Week this year, the National Adoption Coalition has tried to do research into the number of abandoned children throughout the country by approaching the various children's homes, child protection organizations and baby homes to try and see how many abandoned babies they've taken in or dealt with over the last few years. Okay. Sorry. Okay, go ahead. No, and I think we found from that we didn't have a 100% response rate. But from the responses we did receive, we found that the number of known abandonments, where mothers have left their babies with someone or left them in hospital, etc., has decreased, whereas the number of anonymous abandonments has increased. Yeah. Okay. Bongani, let me bring you in there in observance of Child Protection Week. So this is just cases around abandonment, and we're talking different numbers. Earlier on, we touched on in terms of like what happens to children before they're 18 in South Africa. They're attacked, they're abused, they're sexually assaulted, they're abandoned. I don't know if we can correctly say that, somehow South African children are under siege. What is going on with the state of our children?
You're right there, Penny. Good morning to you, Penny, and good morning to our viewers at home. You're right there. The situation with children in South Africa is that a lot of these children basically grow up also in an environment with parents that also come from broken homes. And the situation basically, tends to be exacerbated by the fact that also these parents are also not capacitated enough to be able to raise their children. And therefore, we find ourselves also in situations where we're also not able to protect the very same children. So the responsibility of protecting children in South Africa does not only lie with the parent, but also as a responsibility of the community itself. And therefore, we should be able enough. I mean, the media, we've seen over the past few weeks cases of children that basically are being violated. And what is it? What does it say about us as a country? Over the last few years, we've seen that cases of violence basically were not coming out in the media, and you'd mostly find them in the middle pages, for instance. So as Save the Children in South Africa, we've tried as much as possible to try and bring out issues of violence against children, more focusing on, abandonment, for instance, as well as any other form of abuse, exploitation for that matter. We tried, using the study which we launched later last year, focusing on the social and economic burden of violence against children. In this study, basically what we tried to pull out was costing violence itself and trying to bring to the fore what are we not doing as a country to protect our children. And we established from that study that 238 billion rands was lost in 2015 alone by us not preventing violence. And therefore it's critical for us to start focusing on capacitating our parents and also capacitating our children themselves to be able to claim their right to protection. Okay, so Pam, when we're talking abandoned children, you touched on the numbers are continuously escalating annually. I mean, do we know what are some of the factors that have contributed to that? Have we seen a change over the years? Because there is messaging, that we've continuously been preaching, whether it's in the media, whether it's Child Protection Week, whether it's different campaigns, and in terms of policy and what government speaks to, it continuously repeats that, but things are not changing. Yeah, I think poverty is definitely one of the reasons. I think a lot of these mums are living in situations of dire poverty themselves, and then having a baby is just going to add
an increase to that difficult situation for them. A lot of mums are moving from rural areas into the cities to find better opportunities. Maybe they've got other children still in the rural area with gogos, etc., and they want to improve that situation, and they think that they're going to be able to find a job in the city. Unfortunately, that doesn't often happen because, as we know, there's a huge unemployment rate. And they often find themselves destitute and desperate very quickly. And then on top of that, they fall pregnant because they get into relationships with men who offer them security or offer them a roof over their heads. And as soon as they fall pregnant, of course, often the men just abandon them. And then they're left in that situation. There's also rape, there's incest, there's also a huge disconnect in families these days, you know, lack of family support, families living separately, and mums not being able to rely on anyone really to help them in those situations.
Okay, I don't recall if it was in one of your documents that I read, but that there was also a report that says, we keep saying moms this, moms that. Where are the dads? You know, and in protecting the children, or just male figures, in protecting children, Bongani, the role of man as well.
Yeah, we do have programs at Save the Children in South Africa that are focused on positive parenting, but we found that a lot of people that come out, you know, to participate in such interventions, we find it's mostly mothers, because we're still of the mindset that mothers are the one who's supposed to take care of the children. But we need to start changing that mindset and really start, you know, involving, you know, fathers in terms of basically raising children. So the challenge is that a lot of our programs, in a way, they're still also focused on, you know, engaging with mothers instead of engaging with fathers, but fathers do play a key role in raising, you know, children.
When we're speaking about abandoned children, Pam, there's a talk of like there's a safe and unsafe abandonment. Can you just like take us through what that means?
Safe abandonment would be where the mum possibly is in hospital, has her baby, and then realizes she's not going to be able to keep the baby, and she makes an excuse to go down to the shop to buy sweets or something, and she just leaves the hospital and leaves her baby in a safe place because she knows that there'll be social workers who are going to deal with that situation. Or she leaves it with somebody in a taxi queue, for instance, and says she's just going to go and buy nappies or something for the baby and gives it to the lady standing behind her in the taxi queue. Or she leaves it with somebody that she actually knows and says, I've got to go somewhere, I've got to go for a job interview, and she leaves the baby there. And in daycare as well, a lot of mums leave their babies in daycare and just don't come back to fetch them. So those are the safe abandonments, because obviously they know that the baby's going to be, someone's going to look after that baby and get help for that child. Unsafe abandonment, unfortunately, are the ones where they leave them in dustbins, on the railway line, in the veldt, in deserted buildings, literally on their own, and the potentially, you know, dangerous situation where the baby could die.
Why are people not going for just the route of saying, okay, I don't want to keep this child and I'd like to put them out for adoption?
I think, again, it's lack of awareness of what is out there for help, where to go for help. We also have a large number of foreign birth mothers in the country, very often undocumented. They've come in illegally, and they're very afraid to approach any form of authority that possibly they will be deported or found out that they're in the country illegally. And I think a large proportion of the mums who do abandon possibly fall into that category. Otherwise, it's just mums who leave it too late. They think they're going to go and get help, and then suddenly the baby's there, and they just don't know what to do or where to turn to.
How can we empower our children to they're naturally resilient, but to be even more stronger under such circumstances?
Okay, it's crucial that we basically work with children as young as 6 years, because at that point they really understand. We try as much as possible to develop material that is child-friendly, you know, that can be understood, you know, age-appropriate, can be understood by a child as young as 6, for instance. And in that instance, we try to teach them what is violence, what are the basic signs of, you know, identifying violence, you know, to such an extent that you know, demonstrate, you know, if someone does this, you know, to you, this is what violence is. And also we go to an extent of teaching them about their rights. And how to notice when their right is violated so that they can be able to claim for their right.